Hi, I'm William,
And I'm Kat,
and that means this is info on the go.
answering questions you want to know.
So, today we're going to be talking about that golden spread that everybody loves, right?
I can't
Whether,
believe it's not butter.
well, we're going to be talking about butter, and I can't believe it's not butter, which would be margarine.
Yes.
So, I guess what we should do first, Kat, is define what butter is and maybe define what margarine is.
Agreed.
So I guess I'll kick it off just a little bit here. Um, Butter is a creamy, fatty substance made by churning milk. Churning is a process of turning or agitating. Um, this breaks open the fat membrane in the milk cream, which causes the fat globules to clump together and make butter. Well, I guess now we need to figure out what is milk cream. Side note here, after churning butter, there's a liquid left over that is called buttermilk. Just in case you ever wondered where buttermilk came from. However, modern buttermilk is a fermented dairy drink. So it's not the same stuff as what your grandma or your grandfolks would call buttermilk, right?
I don't think so. And I still don't think I would be drinking any kind of fermented dairy drink.
Oh, I used to love buttermilk, but today's
Ugh,
buttermilk is not good at all.
ugh, ugh. I don't know. It just doesn't sound good. I guess I would have to try the old timey buttermilk there. But at some point, I'm going to make my own butter and maybe my own sourdough. Anyway, I digress.
At the end
Milk
of
cream.
it, at the end of it, I'm gonna tell you how to make butter for sure.
Oh yeah, it's pretty easy. But milk cream or butter fat comes from the fat content naturally present in cow's milk when milk is produced by the cow's mammary glands. It contains a mix of water, proteins, fats, sugars, lactulose, and minerals. The cream is made up of the milk's fat globules, which are lighter than the rest of the milk and tend to rise to the surface when raw milk is left to stand. This is skimmed from the top of the raw milk. Now you have butter fat or milk cream.
Now, just another side note here. Have you ever wondered why milk is here in the US, why milk is labeled skim, 1%, 2%, or whole milk? Well, I'm here to answer that question for you. It's the amount of fat left in the milk after the skimming process, which removes the butter fat. The butter fat is a valuable commodity as it makes creams and, well, as you guessed, butter.
So, when was butter discovered? The most popular theory is butter was discovered by accident around 8000 BC when herdsmen were traveling with milk in a bag hung on the pack animals. The process caused agitating to make, well, butter. Limestone tablets have been found depicting how to make butter from about 4,500 years ago.
Hey, I got a question here. So you milk your animal, right? You put it in these bags and you hang them on over the side of your pack animal and you're traveling, I don't know, 10, 20 miles. And you get there and you open your bag and it's a solid. What do you do? Do you try to consume it? I'm just asking here. I mean, I don't know. Who was the first
Right.
person that said, let me try this?
God, right. I mean, not to mention, I want to know how it was put in a bag back then and was waterproof. I want to know how they proofed
Well,
it. It's leak proof.
they would use stomachs of animals that
Oh, that
they had, or they would use, or they
see, I
would
was
use,
hoping for like resin over the threads or something.
no, no. I'm sorry. I wish I could have a better answer for you, but that's not it.
Fair enough.
So now we've talked about what butter is. Butter's pretty simple, right?
Mm.
So what is margarine? So margarine is a butter substitute made primarily from vegetable oils or animal fats, water, and sometimes milk. It was created as a cheaper alternative to butter and has a similar texture and flavor. The production process involves Hyd how do you say that?
Hy- Hydrogenation.
Hydrogenation. Or, you know what? Why don't you take this part?
The production process involves hydrogenation, or that one I have to sound out. Hold on. In Interesterification.
That
Interesterification.
sounds perfect. You nailed it.
Liquid vegetable oils are partially hydrogenated or modified to become solid or semi-solid at room temperature, giving margarine its spreadable consistency. Modern margarine often avoids full hydrogenation to reduce trans fats.
Blending the fats are combined with water, salt, emulsifiers to help mix the oil and water, and sometimes milk solids. Flavors, vitamins like vitamin D, color, usually yellow, maybe also be added.
Yay, dyes in our food some more. Sorry.
No, you're
Churning and
fine.
cooling. The mixture is churned and cooled to achieve a butter-like texture. So when was margarine invented? French Emperor Napoleon III issued a challenge to create a butter substitute for his armed forces and lower classes. Hippolyte
Yeah,
Megamaurice
yes.
invented and patented margarine in 1869, originally named Oleomargarine. He sold his patent to the Jurgens in 1871. The original formula of margarine was beef fat.
And by the way, Jergens is exactly what you're thinking of, the lotion. Also, that same year, Henry W. Bradley received a U.S. patent to combine vegetable oil, mainly cottonseed oil, with the fats to make, well, margarine. During World War II, the supply of animal fats began to be limited because of the war and the rations.
Mm-hmm.
This led margarine being mostly made of vegetable oils. And we have to mention the Oleo Wars, right?
Mm-hmm.
Have you ever heard of the Oleo Wars,
Nope,
Kat?
that's a new one for me.
It's basically the Butter Wars.
Oh, okay. So it looks like Wisconsin in 1895, the state legislature passed a law forbidding the manufacture or sale of butter-colored oleo, or what's known commonly as margarine. Oh, okay.
But 36 years later, more than 5,000 farmers marched to the Capitol to block an underground system of bringing yellow oleo into the state. Manufacturers could still sell the naturally pale white oleo with packets of yellow coloring. And just to put this out there, so basically you would have butter on the shelf, then you would have margarine, but your margarine would come with this packet of yellow coloring that you would put in it to make it yellow because it would often be clear or I mean like a whitish color.
Hmm.
So the Great Depression era legislature responded with a tax on the fake butter much less expensive than, well, the real thing, butter.
So after World War II, housewives took to bootlegging by going across the state border to bring in the substance. Of course. The struggle over oleo reached a climax when one of its loudest foes and late Senator Gordon Roselip R. Darlington agreed to take a blindfolded taste test of butter and oleomargarine. He failed the test. Later, it was revealed his wife had been feeding him colored oleo while telling him.
So the Oleomargarine Wars refer to the heated economic, legal, and cultural battles over production, sale, and regulation of margarine. In the late 19th and early 20th centuries, primarily in the United States and Europe, these conflicts involved the dairy industry, margarine manufacturers, governments, and consumers. So, you know, honestly and truly, as we start to kind of talk a little bit more about the Oleo Wars, you got to think what was going on here. You know, in Wisconsin and other states where dairy farmers were really big, they saw
Hmm.
margarine as something that was going after their livelihood. Because think, margarine is going to compete with one of their byproducts, butter.
Right.
I'll let you take on the causes of the oleomargin wars.
All right. So the causes were one, competition with butter. Margarine was much cheaper to produce, threatening the dominance of the dairy industry. Dairy farmers and butter producers viewed it as a direct economic threat and a perceived deception. Early margarine was often dyed yellow to resemble butter, which angered consumers and butter producers who accused margarine manufacturers of misleading the public. Three, the economic interests. The butter industry had significant political influence and lobbied for laws to restrict margarine production and sales. Number four, class and cultural tensions. Butter was associated with quality and tradition, while margarine was stigmatized as a product for the poor.
So, margarine can be labeled as healthier than butter because they can control the amount of fat that is in butter. But honestly and truly, um, I mean, you
I don't
gotta
know.
like butter, right? Like I don't like I
I
don't
prefer
believe it's
butter.
not butter. Yeah,
I prefer butter over margarine.
same. Legislation and taxes. Margarine Act of 1886. That's how far this goes back, 1886. And
Jesus.
imposed a federal tax on margarine, 2 cents per pound for uncolored margarine, 10 cents per pound for colored margarine. In other words, if you got the white stuff, 2 cents per pound tax on it. If you had the extra dye added into it, it was an extra 10 cent a pound.
Right.
This required producers to buy expensive license. The goal was to make margarine less competitive against butter. State laws, a lot of laws passed, uh, put these on the books. And we're going to get into some of the federal laws, but there are counties in Wisconsin to this day where if you want margarine, you have to ask for it in certain restaurants. It's just not offered because butter. It's one of their things, right?
Right.
Many states banned colored margarine outright or imposed fines on its sale. Um, the yellow dye controversy. Laws targeted margarine's yellow coloring, requiring it to be sold in its natural white color. Some states mandated margarine to be dyed pink, making it unappealing.
Oh, geez.
Uh, could you imagine pink margarine?
I definitely wouldn't touch it.
I don't
Red
think
dye is
anybody.
probably the worst one out there.
Seriously. Manufacturers responded by providing yellow dye packets so consumers could mix it at home.
Public backlash and protests. Working class families and immigrant communities who relied on margarine as an affordable butter substitute protested anti margarine laws. Legal challenges were brought against the state and federal restrictions, and the
The
resolution was decline of anti-margarine laws. World War I and World War II shortages of butter during the wars increased margarine's acceptance as a necessary alternative. Fair enough. Economic shifts. By the mid 20th century, margarine became a staple in many households, eroding opposition. The end of the U.S. margarine tax in 1950, President Harry Truman signed a bill repealing the federal margarine tax, marking the end of the Oleomargarine Wars.
impact and legacy. Regulatory overreach. The Oleomargarine Wars was often cited as an example of how powerful industries can influence legislation to stifle competition. And we just proved a lot of that.
Mm-hmm.
Margarine had a higher tax rate on it for colored margarine, 2% for uncolored margarine.
Right.
Cultural shift. Margarine's eventual acceptance as mainstream product highlights changing consumer attitudes and economic realities. Margarine's a little bit cheaper. It could be marketed a little bit healthier than the real thing.
Not by much. They had dye to it.
Yeah, for real. I mean, still today they add dye to it.
Yeah. They'll get real butter.
Yeah. Still can't believe it's not butter. No, I'm just playing.
I know, right?
Modern context. Today, margarine and butter coexist with margarine marketed as a healthier, plant-based alternative, which we've been talking a little bit about. The oleomargarine wars were not just about food product, but larger struggle involving economic competition, political lobbying, and cultural identity. Uh, again, it was a cheaper alternative. It's kind of like uh, solar and gas. It's the cheaper
Hmm.
alternative. So, I mean, we see that outplaying today, right? Uh, through
Right,
legislation and through our legislators and different kind of tax breaks and tax things that are going on.
right, right.
But
Ooh,
that is it on butter. So, want to know how to make your own butter?
yeah,
All right.
absolutely.
You're gonna need a mixer. You're gonna need a stand mixer, basically.
You
You're
can
gonna,
even use a blender.
yes, yeah, you can use a blender. You just need to set it on low.
Yep.
You're gonna get some heavy whipping cream. Make sure
Hmm.
your pot is cold. Make sure your heavy whipping cream is cold. Cold is better.
Hmm.
You pour your heavy cream in there. You're looking for something with a higher fat content in your creams when you go to do it. And you're
Hmm.
just gonna mix it for
Way past the whipped cream stage. You're just going to mix and mix and mix and mix and mix for days. Not literal days, but
about what, 10 to 15 minutes. That's usually about how long it takes me to make my butter.
yeah, that sounds about
Um,
right. And
but
you
when
can
you
add salt if you want to.
absolutely. But once you get to that point past the whipped cream state of it, you want to just keep going until it starts to get chunky. You want to keep going just a little bit more until it becomes kind of like a malleable mass.
Yeah, it kind of becomes kind of like Play-Doh.
Yes, yes, absolutely. Couple of things you want to do here. One, that cream that's in the bottom, that's buttermilk. Remember, you can use that in baking. You can use it in your macaroni and cheese instead of milk. It's good. Uh, but you're
Good
gonna
for
want to.
pancakes too.
Oh yeah, pancakes are the best with it for sure.
Hmm.
But you're gonna want to make sure that you rinse your butter off very, very, very good. The
With cold
reason,
water.
yes, and the reason for this is that that buttermilk that's left on there can make your butter spoil faster.
Yeah, we don't want spoiled butter.
Yep. And to Kat's point, you can add you a little bit of salt. You can add you some seasonings in there. If you like garlic butter, there's
Yeah,
some
you can add
garlic
some
in there.
garlic in there.
That's
Hmm.
what I do when I do it. I do that and I reverse sear my steaks and then I put that garlic butter on the top of it, tinfoil it right before I get ready to sear it.
Right.
And you can freeze it for what, up to a couple of months. You can use it, and it's probably going to be a little bit paler than what you would buy at the store, but you made your own butter.
And it was just that simple. One ingredient, heavy whipping cream, and a
That's it.
mixer. But I mean, you could also put it in a jar and shake it if you don't have a mixer.
That's a whole lot of shaking.
It is a whole lot of shaking, but it can be done.
Just just think you're gonna be churning your milk cream.
Yeah, manually churning.
That's all I have on butter.
All right.
So make sure you follow us on Facebook at Info on the Go. Make sure you give us a review wherever you get your podcast from. Who knows? Maybe Cat will read it for you.
Yeah, I'll do my best anyway.
There you go. All right. With that being said, that is
That
uh,
is it.
that's all I have. Later.
Catch y'all next time.